All right, guys. So it's been a while. What the hell was that? All right, guys. So it's been a while since we talked about Trisha Paytas. It's also been a while since we've looked at a Brittany Simon video. It's also been a while since we've played Balloons TD6. So this is a trifecta of perfection. Now, this video is called "Does Having a Baby Make You a Better Person?" And it's about Trisha Paytas, and it is Brittany Simon's perspective on the topic. You know, I'm gonna
files tipped $3.33.
You scared me.
Papa Gut, I found a why I don't like the LGBT community part 2.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That scared me for some reason. I actually got startled, probably because of all the spooky imagery on the screen. Anyway, listen. Now time's gone on. The Trisha Paytas arc is over. Trisha's kind of moved on with her life. I think I can understand. They made a... Oh, wow. I think I can understand. I feel bad about some of my past coverage. I feel like it was pretty aggressive. It was at a time where I wasn't a little popular myself, and I'm not even that popular. But I've been through my ups and downs of social media. Done bad things, done good things. I've done things, unfortunately, brief periods for attention. Not something I do anymore. And while I think that there are a lot of bad things Trisha's done, I also think that social media is a hell of a drug. So I really haven't talked about her too much. But Brittany's going to talk about her. And I'm curious what she has to say. So let's get this going.
Let's talk about change. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to today's podcast. My name is Brittany.
Of course, a Jewish person that wants to talk about change. I don't... All right. I don't remember if she's actually Jewish or not. We'll just be a little silly. I am, though, so it's okay.
In today's podcast, we are drinking a tea my sister-in-law got for me from a local tea shop in my Uncle Iro teapot.
Wow.
I don't know what's in this tea. So, the only thing I know that is in it is like a minty kind of flavor. Oh, yeah, it's like a minty and chamomile, and that's all I know. It's like wildflowers. It's very good. I've had it before on the podcast. Okay. In today's video, I want to talk about change and what brings on change in a person's life. 2-3 podcasts ago, I did the podcast on Trisha Paytas, and some people...
You know, fundamentally, what brings change into people's lives is really just some kind of stress. Could be good stress, could be bad stress, but just some kind of stress will add change to your life. It's really nothing super complicated. And stress isn't like it doesn't have to be a huge thing. Stress could be getting a new job. Stress could be losing a relationship. Stress could be gaining a relationship, right? Like, you know, being in a relationship with somebody can be stressful in one ways and de-stressing in other ways. And that will create change. That's why I think that people who are famous, they tend to not change very much because you have less stress in your life. The more money you have, the less stress you have, the less growth I think you experience. So
people are upset. I understand you're coming from a very specific perspective in your bubble, in your reality. And I'm going to be honest with you. I can hear the trauma in your comments. I absolutely know why you're upset, but I want to calm you down because you can't live your life that upset, okay?
I can.
First
Don't tell me what to do.
In my video about Trisha Paytas,
I
made the statement that obviously she has changed now that she's had a baby, and it's for the positive. And a lot of people were upset saying that, you know, people can't just have babies to change, but they do. And so I want you to be...
Well, I mean, you can just have a baby to change. I don't know if that's what Trisha did. I think she just really wanted a baby very badly, and she had one. But you can, guys, have a baby just so that the person will stay with you. Okay, just kidding. That's a lot of couples will do that. They'll have a kid just so that they can keep a relationship going. It's not going to work. If your relationship is failing before, it's going to fail after. So
open to the idea that not everybody is a narcissistic parent who's going to breed you into a traumatic experience. Maybe Trisha is, maybe she's not. But people change when they have babies.
If you're not
I mean, listen, you know, it's one of those things where because a lot of people don't like Trisha. They're like, oh, she shouldn't have a kid. I've said that before, jokingly, but then also she's a little crazy. But at the end of the day, we have a lot of different people who aren't necessarily fit to be parents. People who are addicted to drugs are some of them. Let's be real. But, you know, the idea is to allow people to have the freedom to have their own kids, and, you know, hopefully they'll get their shit together. So, yeah, whatever, she's having a kid.
Doing the whole pregnancy and labor thing, the physical changes you go through when your kid is born
Wait, what is this?
might not be as
Who's this guy?
dramatic, but it's still pretty obvious when you become a parent. So you get those dark circles under your eyes from the constant lack of sleep, not to mention your style might change a little bit. Goodbye, expensive duds, hello,
Duds.
spit up stained t-shirts and sweatpants. You might even find yourself with a more cuddly physique, the classic dad bod. But the changes on the outside are just the beginning. Your insides change a lot too, leading to what you might call dad brain, or even just parent brain. Tweaks to your brain tissues and hormones that prepare you to take better care of your kids. But based on what they've learned so far, it seems like a lot of the same brain-related changes that happen in parents who just gave birth also happen in parents who didn't. For example, we know that some areas of the brain tend to get bigger after childbirth. And a 2014 study in the journal Social Neuroscience found similar patterns in brains of new fathers from heterosexual couples. Using MRIs, the researchers looked at 16 new dads' brains and found that the size of certain areas increased in the first few months after their child was born. The areas that grew were involved in things like planning parental behaviors, responding to infant cues, and feeling good about attachment and bonding.
Wait, so hold on.
Parent increased in the first few months after their child was born.
That's interesting to me, though. It's interesting that this would happen after the first few months. Because that suggests to me that it has to do with having a baby around you more than anything else. Maybe it's like a pheromone release, but like being in a responsible parental role. I could see, because you're not going to have like a hormone release. You're not actually doing making the baby yourself. Like the wife would have like a hormonal release. So it's interesting that it happens in more like months after, like as some kind of like environmental impact.
Feeling good about attachment and bonding.
Just like an ego death, it's going to be different for everyone and not always what you think it is. So as an example, people always say to me, Brittany, how do I know if I've had an ego death? Well, usually you change. Usually you have a different relationship with your ego and you change, right? When you have a baby and you change for the better, that's how you know it changed you. If you don't change for the better, then you're just different. Now,
well, if you're not a smart person, I guess you wouldn't really be able to make the distinction of like whether your change was better or just exist. You know what I mean? But okay, I know what you're saying.
You can change for the worst as well when you have children. I know a woman who gave birth to a baby after having a very successful career, very successful marriage. Her and her husband were in their 30s, and people were like, you know, you would make a great couple, a great parent couple. You not a great couple, a great parent, like parents. You should have babies. So they had 2 babies. It triggered her bipolar. She's now bedridden. She had to divorce her husband. She couldn't maintain her mental health. She gained hundreds of pounds because of her medication. She couldn't function. She had to quit her job because the chemicals on her body shifted so drastically, it triggered her like sleeping borderline or bipolar. And now she's just a totally interesting human. That's not who she used to be.
That's horrible. And the worst part, like, bro, just another reason why I'm so happy I'm not a fucking woman, because like I'm not gonna have these massive like internal hormonal changes after I have a kid. Holy fuck, bro.
Her husband, ex-husband now, has moved on. He's remarried or repartnered, and then their kids.
That's crazy.
Well, they're definitely kids who had to raise their mother and help their father, right? Because something unique happened. Now they all kind of managed, and they're a pretty functional, wonderful family. I really love this family. I really, really love this family. So no shade. But sometimes we always think of the baby as this perfect and wonderful miracle that's always going to be positive in people's lives, and that's just not a fact. Not everyone's meant to be a parent.
Ask a parent, and they might say,
my relationships with my children are absolutely the most important thing in my life, even more important than my relationship with my partner.
Sure.
The joy of being parents, I don't know anyone who says it's easy, but the reward is amazing.
We have a lot of gratification from just sort of raising these like beautiful boys who are doing like amazing things every day.
But not everyone wants to be a parent, and research suggests those without kids are actually happier.
Parenthood is like a roller coaster ride of ups and downs, of highs and lows. And life without children is simply much more stable. It has much less variation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's true that they might report that they're happier. I mean, how do you quantify like that happiness though? Is kind of my question. Because like I understand that, like, oh, you'll be more happier like if you don't have kids because you don't have these external stress factors. But like I just feel like, how do you quantify that happiness? Because having a kid is going to put you in a like, you know, less happy situation, basically, because it's like stressful. But it's still worth it from every single parent that I've ever had a conversation with. So I wonder how they gauge this happiness. You know, just because you might be less happy doesn't mean that like you're. I'm trying to figure out the way to say it, because I don't know if it's like a happiness. I don't know. It's like, yeah, you might be less happy. That doesn't make you less happy. I know that sounds so weird. I don't know how to articulate what I'm trying to say here. Papa got medical provider here. Men actually do have significant hormonal changes when the baby is born. Holding your baby, etc., is another reason we recommend skin to skin. Yeah, that's what I meant, though. It's like, that's what I was trying to communicate before. Sorry if I did it improperly. That it's like once the baby comes out, it's like more the proximity to the child. Like, what if they had a proximity? I'm saying that, like, if a man had a proximity to like a child that wasn't biologically their own, that was like a newborn, I would imagine they would have similar hormonal responses to the kid and like some kind of a bonding experience. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, fulfillment. Yeah, there you go, fulfillment. Yes, thank you. So it's like, just because you're less happy doesn't mean that you're less fulfilled. You may be more fulfilled. It's one of those things where people will kind of avoid will avoid some kind of a stress in their life that they may need to engage with just so that they might be happier. You know what I mean? It's the same thing as like public speaking. How many of you guys when you were younger were terrified of public speaking, as an example? You're like, I can't do this. I don't want to do public speaking. You know what I mean? How many of you were terrified of that? But after the fact, you develop like a really strong life skill that's like absolutely imperative. That makes the most sense.
Meet Amy Blackstone,
No.
author of Child Free by Choice. She herself has chosen to be child-free. She's also been conducting research on the subject for the last 12 years.
Wow,
By my mid-30s, I had 3 friends share with me that they were pregnant themselves. I started to really worry that something was wrong with me. What I was relieved to discover is that there is no scientific evidence that there's a thing called a maternal instinct that drives women to become mothers.
And sometimes
What? I feel like that just can't be true. I feel like I just don't. There's just no way that there's no instinct from people to want to take care of kids. I'm not saying there aren't social factors. I'm sure that there are social factors. But like there's no way that there isn't a biological imperative and direction from people to fucking have kids. I feel like there absolutely is. I feel like that's not like I feel like the wording is weird. I feel like it's weird.
Sometimes the people that are meant to be parents are people that maybe we wouldn't reflexively think that they're meant to be one, right? In my household, and even amongst my siblings, I think you could say that, oh, maybe Brittany's not, meant to be a mother, but I think other people see me and obviously know I'm meant to be a mother. It just depends on what version of me you're seeing. Same with Trisha, same with everyone else. I think it's pretty clear Trisha's always been meant to be a mother. It just depended on which one she was going to decide to be.
I don't know if anybody is. I don't know. I don't believe in like that whole like universal meant to be this, meant to be that kind of nonsense. But okay, I get what you're saying.
Recently put out a video talking about how she used to really love, Pamela Anderson and all those toxic relationships. I'm gonna.
Bro, let me just tell you something. I watched Pam and Tommy. I feel so bad for Pamela Anderson. She really got a raw fucking deal. That woman's life got ruined. That was horrible. Like people called her like a whore and everything just because, like, bro, that shit's fucking terrible. How horrible, bro. How horrible.
The Pamela Anderson relationship, the MGK Megan Fox, before MGK Megan Fox, there is a type of character trope in a relationship that exists, or like relationship trope, where like you see the couples and you know what kind of couple they are, right? Trisha definitely idealized and wanted that relationship when she was in her 20s. I myself did as well. Very toxic emo. I'm in love with you. I'll sacrifice my life for you. And
I'm in love with an emo girl.
But having bad relationships,
emo girl.
If I didn't have my toxic relationships in my 20s, I wouldn't have known how to get a good one in my 30s. But that's just
that's just life, man. I feel like that's just normal to be in like shitty relationships. It happens all the time. I've been in toxic, shitty relationships. Like that's just very normal. And I feel like now with like social media, kids don't understand that because they're dumb fucks that have never been in any relationships. So like, oh my God, you did this bad thing in a relationship. Like, yes, everybody does bad things in their relationships. Like you're a fucking moron. Shut up. You know what I mean? It's one of those types of situations.
Just for Brittany's experience, not necessarily for yours. Some people, it's children. Some people have babies and they don't give a fuck. They ditch that kid. They don't give a fuck. Other people have children and it really matters. It changes everything. Most parents I meet who also enjoy being parents will say, your kid changes you, bro. It tells you about yourself. You learn more about yourself. You become more humble.
If you're around the kid enough, it changes who you are. And if you're not around the kid, it changes who you are because then you realize you're not around the kid and that's going to take a piece out of who you think you are.
But you know what? If you and we have friends who aren't great dads or whatever, and you can see it in their kids. I'm not saying I'm a psychologist or I'm some expert in parenting, but if I go to a person's house and I see the way the kids treat the parents, I go, "You're not around enough, man." I promise you, I can tell.
Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, you'll start exhibiting behavioral issues because your parents aren't paying enough attention to you in some capacity. That absolutely makes sense.
Doesn't act like that.
Yeah.
Because one thing you can call me whatever you want. One thing I am is a beast of a dad. I know that. I don't know if I'm a good comic. I don't know if I was a good fighter. I don't know if I'm a good podcaster. That's all up for debate. One thing I know is I'm a fucking good dad, man.
Good for you, man.
That. Yeah.
It's a very, 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 very important quality. And
absolutely.
That quality, when your kid becomes an adult, that's going to be just a major factor in how you get along.
So I know a lot of people were upset with me saying like, oh my gosh, Brittany, people can't just have kids because they want to be better. I hate to tell you this. I think it's been shown through a lot of people's stories that hardships, having responsibility for someone outside of yourself, can and often does make you a better person.
Absolutely.
So I understand what you're saying. I obviously assume the people who have those comments come from very narcissistic households, but so did Trisha. If you grow up...
Maybe. I feel like it's one of those things... I feel like they don't have to come from like a narcissistic household to have this really weird perspective about like... or like a disconnected perspective. I feel like that's just normal now. People are just dumb nowadays. They just have very ignorant, disconnected perspectives because they're getting their education online. They're not really experiencing the real world, and they think they know what the fuck they're talking about when most of the times that they don't. It's just terminally online individuals. That's their biggest diagnosis. I wouldn't call them like narcissistic. I call them fucking terminally online, bro. That's got to be a real. We gotta make that into a real mental disorder because it's fucking crazy.
Listen to how she grew up. She grew up in a very unstable, wishy-washy yo-yo home, and now that she has better relationships with her parents, because she never, she had ups and downs throughout her life, she can kind of have more compassion for her parents and realize that she doesn't want to exactly give those examples as the only options for existence to her baby. So she said something to the effect of like, her parents, her mom was a bartender and her dad was like an entrepreneur who went up and down with success and then finally became successful. And she thought growing up that those were her options. And then she chose sex work, and then she realized like she wants her daughter to know she has more options. And I think that comes from a place of actually having tools. So often when I hear people be upset at other people, especially people like Trisha, what I'm hearing is, I'm afraid she's like the person who hurt me. For me, I don't have anyone in my life like Trisha, and I'm not enough like Trisha to feel like I identify with her very strongly. So when Trisha fucks up or does something, I don't feel emotionally triggered or impacted by her actions, which allows me to be more compassionate with her because she's not in any way connected to my own psychology, even if we both have borderline.
I don't know if it's necessarily that deep. I feel like some of it is just Trisha's kind of an asshole, and it's hard to be very empathetic to assholes. I feel like that's more of what it is than anything else. She's just kind of a fucking asshole, and people are just like, I don't like her, and so like I have this interpretation. I don't think it has to be like this super deep thing where like people are effectively what's the word, projecting their insecurities onto other people. It might just be that Trisha's kind of a doo-doo head, and that's it, you know. But it could be. I'm just saying.
Same either. I think I was a much higher functioning borderline throughout my life, so I didn't have to make all the mistakes she made. But I think for her, she was so unstable, so unsure if she had a loving home. Keep in mind, my borderline is from my parents not understanding me. It's not from my parents not loving me. I think other people's borderline comes from having often households where they don't know if they're loved or not, period, and they're not sure what that means, and they might not even be a priority. I know all my life, and I knew all my life that my parents prioritized their children. They just had unorthodox and bubble ways of thinking, which led us to having a lot of controversy, and even to this day makes it that I can't be in my parents' home for more than 3-4 days before I'm usually like, oh, I'm gonna get triggered, because we live in a different reality, so it feels like gaslighting. But that's the thing. Reading your comments on my podcast about Trisha feels the same way to me, and that's because we all live in different realities. So when you go around saying Trisha's a grifter, Trisha's a bad person, Trisha's never going to get better, you're just projecting. Now, it's true that Trisha might not get
doesn't necessarily encourage. Oh my god, I was muted the whole time.
better,
Okay.
but it's
How long was I muted for there? Okay, weird. Anyway, what I was going to say was that oh my god. Going to say it's possible Trisha hasn't exactly shown like the most growth, but it can be difficult to grow on the internet, especially when people want to see your downfall. They want to antagonize you into having like a meltdown, and so for content. So
your fucking business, you fucking bitch. And that's the thing. You think it's your business because you're a narcissist, not because you're a good person. If you spend your whole life wanting to take down anyone else, you are basically saying that this other person is me and my identity, and it's my whole life. And that's kind of pathetic. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you don't need to project your traumas onto Trisha or me or anyone else in order to have an observation of Trisha. You can
and
say,
yeah, that's another good point too, is that you thought I was deeply reflecting? No, I wasn't. That's another thing too, though, when it comes to Trisha Paytas, is that she's been very intentionally antagonistic and like shown fake growth, you could probably argue, throughout her career, you know. Been a little bit performative, so it's difficult to take her seriously on anything. So that's another part of it too, for sure.
I don't know Trisha personally, but through my lens of my trauma and my life and my bubble, this is how I'm feeling about Trisha. But you're not leaving comments saying that. You're being very sure that Trisha is this thing. Many people came to me and said,
Brittany, she stinks.
Trisha hasn't changed. She's still on OnlyFans. Can moms not be on OnlyFans? Did you think that I, as a sex worker, first, I'm not going to be on OnlyFans when I have a baby, but also...
Well, it's weird because people were like, oh my god, like when she was pregnant, she was still on her grind and doing work, and people were like, oh my god, she's sexualizing the baby. It's like, no, she's not. She's just working. Why are you so, like, what's your malfunction, bro? Like, it's crazy. People are rabid animals, man. It's true. It's true stuff.
Did you think that was going to be like an argument towards or against Trisha? Like, people were writing me like, oh, Brittany, Trisha's the same. She's using her baby for videos. And I'm like, she'd be a fool not to. What are you talking about? Like, it's okay. All parents, it's normal.
Well, I don't know. when it comes to the statement using her baby for videos, there's a difference between using your kid in a video and just like having your kid in a video or making videos about your kid. I mean, if she's actually like legitimately like using the kid, like, yeah, that's a problem. But I feel like that may not be the most generous interpretation. Like, she has a baby now and she's putting the kid in the videos, and like, that's like, you know, she's probably do a little too much TMI, and I'd be careful for her of introducing her kid to some of the more toxic aspects of social media, right? Like getting hooked on likes and views and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know.
And also, it's normal that we want to share that we're happy. You really think I'm not going to be breastfeeding my baby on YouTube? You're insane. If you think I'm going to have a crying baby while I'm streaming and I'm going to stop my stream versus just throwing a blanket over my boobs and breastfeeding, you're insane, right? But I understand what you're saying. Like, she's using her baby for clout. But again, for people who want to be mothers and people who have borderline, Trisha's a great example of like, okay, not necessarily the most healthy mother, but a mother who's trying. And that is an amazing thing to watch. So again, when you tell me, Brittany, you can't just do something to change your life. Okay, hold the phone. I know what you're saying, but it also isn't true. Many people have a story where having a child changed their life. Many women get pregnant on purpose to save their relationships. A lot of people do a lot of crazy shit because they don't know better or because they think it's the best solution. You cannot go around crucifying everyone for being imperfect because you yourself are imperfect. We are imperfect as a species. Now, you can give your insight, you can be compassionate and loving, you can meet people where they are in their journey, but if your whole shtick is just to lecture people for the changes or attempts at changes in their life, I don't have time for you either, boo-boo, because you're just as negative as anyone else being negative. And that negativity is not helpful. The amount of people on Trisha's videos leaving comments like, did you notice that she holds her baby weird? Did you notice that she does this weird? Did you guys ever consider you're projecting? Did any of you crazy fuckers ever think that maybe I'm the problem? Because when I see Trisha hold her baby, I'm like, yeah, that's how you hold a baby. I've worked in childcare professionally all
I have no idea how she's holding her baby. It probably doesn't really matter that much. Okay.
Through my 20s, I worked specifically with newborns, and I specifically work with babies 2 at a time.
Personally, I worked with oldborns. Funny Papa Gut joke. It's funny.
Always had 2 newborns, 2 babies, and I hate to tell you this because maybe you don't know. Actually, I would love to tell you this. Babies are incredibly fucking durable. Like, yes, they're soft little beans and they're very fragile when they first come out, but Trisha's baby, that's a durable baby.
Well, I mean, listen, I don't know how Trisha's holding her baby, but I don't know how durable they are. I mean, if you shake them too hard, they die, or they have like traumatic brain injuries. So I don't know how durable babies are. I'm just saying it, but okay.
You know a durable baby when you see one, but also it's insane to me that people don't know how like flexible and amazing the baby's body is. And yes, though, the skull is very fragile, and though they're very fragile, literally, they're not going to break because she's holding them in a way that you think looks wrong. Remember, Trisha's actually holding her baby, right? And she's not going to be perfect. A lot of parents don't know how to hold their babies. A lot of parents don't know how to feed them.
That's a better argument. Hey, listen, maybe Trisha's just like, you know, makes some mistakes sometimes. It's not that big of a deal. And like, hey, you know what? You're probably making, or people in your life probably making the same mistakes when they hold their babies, but we don't really focus on that because they're not public entities. Like, that might be a little bit of a better argument to go with. But okay.
Their babies. Many parents freak out and call their doctors. Did I kill my baby? What do I do? The baby's not breathing. Oh my gosh. Babies bring out so many fears and anxieties in people. Even if you're a nanny, even if you're a mother or a father, it's anxiety inducing. No one's going to do it perfect though. Period. The end. Again, I know all kinds of people who go to therapy, people who had rough parents, people who have parents who don't understand them, people who have parents who fuck them, people who had parents who sold them for sex trafficking, people who have parents who loved them so much they didn't know if they could ever do wrong, and so they had to go to therapy to figure out failure was okay. Everyone has a parent that's complicated. The question is, what...
Those are a wide array of different issues there. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say, bro. Holy moly.
What are you going to do as an individual who knows better, if you know better, then what are you actually going to do? And are you going to be ready to put your feet to the fire when people want to look at you and decide if you've done great as a parent? Or are you going to be compassionate and learn that it's complicated and nuanced to exist on this stupid fucking planet and we're all doing our best? Though some of us, caveat, obviously are not doing our best, and though I think those are few and far in between, I think everyone is trying. Even the people leaving those comments, that's them trying, right? They're trying. Sure, they're just fucking it up because they're projecting their trauma into other people. But that's what everyone does. Like, that's literally just what everyone does, right? It's just so human. We all do that. Even me during my calls with people, I'm always like, hey, don't let me project onto you. I'm just double checking. Is this what's going on? And they're like, oh my gosh, that's it. Or, oh no, I think that is like a little bit of projection. Because no one is without fault. No one is without the
except for me.
Narcissism we all have within us, right? It's just sometimes people forget that your trauma can make you a worse narcissist than the one that fucked you over. And you don't understand it because you're so in your trauma and you so feel like bad that you don't understand you're becoming just as ugly as those people who raised you. So again, I understand people's concerns, but I think you really need to check your fucking self. Now, Some people will say,
well, I get that. I mean, people tend to, grow through habits. So when you grow up with like bad habits, like let's say you have like parents that did bad things, you're likely to grow up doing those bad things, even though you resent those qualities because you're not recognizing that you're engaging in those same qualities. And it's most likely the same thing for those bad parents in the first place. That, that's how it started. You know what I mean?
never do drugs. It doesn't help you. Well, that's not true. Fact, drugs definitely help change me for the better. For other people, drugs will change them for the worst. Again, going to school, going to college.
I want to know what she's talking about. What kind of drugs? What were her relationship with drugs? Also, I don't know. I don't really know too much. That reminds me of the guy who's like, hey, I'm actually a really good driver when I'm drunk. You know what I mean? That's just what you know those people. No. I'm a little different. I'm built different. When I need to drink and drive, it helps me. I'm different. Okay, reminds me of that.
College, getting married, having kids, all of these things people do, these permanent or long-term decisions people make, or these very impacting decisions people make, impactful decisions, either which way, it's going to impact the individual so specifically that you cannot black and white decide it's wrong for everybody. Sex work cannot be black and white wrong for everyone or right for everybody. It makes no sense.
I feel like sex work is probably okay for some people, but for the most part, I think it's like difficult to put yourself in like that objectifying position for a long period of time. You know, it would be nice. I mean, listen, you have the freedom to do your thing. It'd be good to have like an alternative. I feel like some people, especially women, feel like there's no alternative to what they're doing, and then they kind of go gravitate towards it. I also think we have like a social media that encourages it a little too much for people, which adds to the problem. So,
being a woman cannot be right for everyone and wrong for everybody. You know, everyone always tells me what to do with my hair, which is like really funny. They'll be like, straighten it, cut it, do this, put it up. It's like even my hair down to my clothes, people have decided they know better for me what to do with it. So of course I'm going to expect it from YouTube comments. But if you are one of those commenters, I just want to give you another tool to consider that you're the problem.
Whoa, never me.
The reason I say this is, again, I don't spend my time going on people's YouTube videos talking about how they're holding their babies wrong.
True.
If I was going to...
I just make videos about it. I'm just kidding. I don't care.
do it. I try to do it in the nicest way possible, and even that might not be possible. When I got diagnosed with like lupus, everyone was giving me the craziest medical advice, from just like, just like interesting advice to, I don't know about that, to just so much interesting medical advice. And again, none of these people are doctors. So I appreciate it. I like holistic medicine as much as the next person, but I have a fucking doctor, and I have a nutritionist, and I have my holistic friends. But either which way, I don't know if people know this from their perspective. When you're leaving a comment, you do understand that you do not know people's medical history, correct?
I do.
Like, you don't know their details. Even me, who makes comments about people all the time, I'm obviously open to being wrong any second of any day. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. No biggie, no hurt feelings. That is what it is. But I have a feeling these commenters are not going to be willing to know they're wrong. Like, they're not going to be willing to admit it. So again, when you're going through life and you're making a decision about what people should and shouldn't do, you need to decide why. Lots of people need something more important than themselves, like my cat, to have a sense of responsibility. Now, I got Indiana Jones when I was going through a bad breakup, and I knew I was ready for a cat.
Indiana Jones.
But I also knew I was ready for the responsibility, and Indiana has been my greatest companion and learning about myself and my sense of responsibility. Like right now, I'm debating if I want to live overseas or in America for the next couple of years, and the biggest struggle is my cat. I'm literally so worried about her going overseas with me. What if she gets lost? What if she leaves the house? What if she
just
dies?
send her
what
underseas?
If she doesn't make it to the cargo, whatever. What if she, what? And a part of me is like, should I not?
Just drug your cat and have him go. That's pretty much it. That's all you got to do. Overcorrecting and being contrarian to argue against nitpicking is just as bad. It's just as toxic, annoying, obnoxious, and stupid. What is that? What are you referring to? It's interesting.
Not move countries just because I have a cat. That's how much having something outside of yourself can change your whole life.
So I just gotta eat the cat.
So people often will make love, will produce babies. Trisha's always wanted to be a mother. Trisha didn't have a baby to get better. Trisha had a baby because she wanted to be a mother. And if you start saying mentally ill people shouldn't be parents, then none of us are going to be parents. Because at the end of the day, it's obviously clear that most of us are fucked up in some specific way.
Yeah, true. I wonder why. There does seem to be like a spike in mental health issues in general. Like, I wonder if it has to do with like just the way that we're diagnosing, or if it has to do with having kids older, honestly, and unhealthier conditions. I mean, if the mother and the father have their own issues, it increases if having a kid when you're older increases the chance of them having some kind of like disability, especially for the mother. Being diabetic, things like this have like taking some medications have a negative impact or potential negative impact on the kid. It's pretty fucked up, crazy shit.
Way in different ways, but that's life. Life is beautiful because through the chaos of our evolution, we still get better. So that's the thing. If you think humans are special, you might start creating weird rules in your head about who's a good parent versus accepting the fact that we're just probably evolved animals over time and we're all just kind of figuring it out generation by generation.
50,
we're not
60,
special, in my opinion. From my understanding of what is and who we are, there is no indicator that human beings are any more important than the cat. Not really. Like, our consciousness and our ability to communicate is great, but like Indiana talked to animals too. She got conversations and shit going. She's been a mom. She's had babies. Like, if you took it down, you took my life and her life. We've lived the same lives in different ways, right? But she's a cat and I'm a human. But we're all creatures of an evolved earth. So I think for me, it's about humbling myself, not down to the animal, but to know I'm a part of the ecosystem of the earth. So I don't start thinking I'm better than everyone else, even my own humanity, that I'm like this godlike creature who's perfect in every way. To have the audacity to leave comments on people's videos about, you know, if they would only listen to me, I could save their life. It's like, you sound crazy. Oh gosh, the way she's holding her baby. You guys are all conspiracy theorists. Like, it's kind of insane. Or, oh, Trisha Paytas is a bad mom because she's a sex worker. Fuck you. Fuck you. Perfectly humble, wholesome, religious mothers cause their kids to commit suicide because they're anti-gay. I don't want to hear you guys talking about, you know, what makes a good mother. You know what makes a good parent? Don't fuck your kid. Don't beat your kid, like, abusively. Don't beat your kid, period, really. But, like, don't, you know.
To say abusively? I guess beat your kid, just not too bad, okay?
Know what I mean?
Based.
There's like a generational thing that happens over time. People learn corporal punishment on a spectrum, so caveat. But obviously, like, don't fucking rape your kids. Don't sell them into sex slavery. Do as good by them as you can, and try your best to fucking love them.
To be honest with you, those are some low standards. Like, those are some pretty expected things. Like, you know what I'm saying? But okay, sure.
The best you can, even when life is complicated.
I wonder what
Again,
do this.
We can't go around regulating people's bodies, from abortions or whether or not they should be parents. We can't live in a world, or we shouldn't live in a world, I think, where people aren't free to live out their existence. We only have one life on Earth and then you die. Do you really want to spend it leaving comments on Trisha Paytas' videos?
Yes.
Or doubting that change can happen when change is obviously clearly a great
exactly
like an instigator for betterness? Like, again, it's not always that way.
That's exactly what I want to do.
You can't say, don't do this. You cannot say, I'll just have a baby and I'll get better. That's not how it works. Usually people, oh my God, I'm having a baby. Oh my God, I'm having a baby.
This works anyway.
Oh my God, now I have to be serious. It's kind of like when you're in a couple and you like decide to be more healthy for your partner because now it's not just about you. I did that with my partner. We had to discuss just like, you know, life choices. You know, are we going to be healthy? How healthy are we going to be? Is our goal to stay alive for each other? Is our goal to, you know, eat junk food and get fat and smoke until we both die at 40? Like, what's our goal? Because the truth is when I'm single, I have a little bit more of a reckless habit of abusing my body, like maybe eating more junk food or maybe being tempted to smoke more. I just have things that I'm more lax on when I'm single than when I'm in a partnership, because when I'm in a partnership, the real like possibility of children coming into the picture is now possible in such a distinctly clear way that my brain is like, oh, you have to stay alive for these kids. You cannot die on your children. You know, in my life, we've had a lot of deaths, and I've seen young people in their 40s and 50s die on their kids, and they don't mean to do it. And often the time it's because of morbid obesity, health-related issues, choices they made with their diets. And I feel for them. I'm not even blaming them, because in their heads, I do not believe, and I refuse to believe, that they're in any way truly understanding that they're going to die. I think they all, like children, think it's not going to happen to me. I'm going to be the fat guy who lives forever. I'm going to be the smoker who lives forever. I'm going to be the race car driver that lives forever. And I love that. I love that optimism. I like to think that I'm not the special person, though, and I always assume it's going to happen to me. So, like with my lupus, they told me to stop smoking because of blood clots, and I stopped smoking because I assume I am going to be the dumb fuck who's smoking one time on a live stream and fucking blood clot, and I'm dead just on stream, bros. Yeah. So I assume I'm never the exception. And I think that's kind of why I have the upper hand on all of existence sometimes, because I think everyone remains as adolescent as when they were like 14 and 15. It's not going to happen to me, man. It's not going to happen to me. But it probably is. You're probably going to fuck up. You're probably going to drive drunk one day. You're probably going to hit prison one time. You're probably going to be falsely accused one day.
Well, I'm not going to drive drunk, so I don't know. I understand what you're saying. You know what I mean?
Probably going to slip up on a bill and not pay it on time. You might even get your kids taken away from you and given back to you. You might have to experience court systems or jail time, or, you know, whatever it is. It might happen to you. You might be the person who dies at 21 or gets married at 45 or the virgin until 60 and then finally finds the love of his life and stays with them until they're 70 or 90 or whatever it is. The point is that you don't know which story is going to be yours until it's happening, until you're aware of it. But if you just stop right now and look at your life, who are you in the story? What story are you in? Are you in like Clueless? Bring It On? Are you like a head cheerleader? Are you like the popular girl in school? Are you like in House of Cards? Are you like the politician? Are you in
Are you the Kevin Spacey?
Name anything here, insert show here, insert trope here. You just have to make a decision about what are you actually doing with your life. So again, I look at my life and I try to pay attention to my habits, and I try to decide, am I okay being the story character that I obviously am? I'm really happy with my choices. I have plenty of regrets, and none of them that I can go back and change, and none of them that I would, because it is what it is. Sometimes I'm really upset with past Brittany and the things that she's decided to do. But then I remember that
Yeah, I think we've all been there, man. I mean, if you don't look back at your past and go like, wow, I wish this didn't happen, then you probably didn't experience enough growth. Because like there's definitely things I look back and go like, wow, I really fucking like, you fuck up and you don't even intend to do it. You know what I mean? Some fucked up shit, man. Like you just fuck up and you don't even know what you did was fucked up until you grow older. It's some fucked shit, brother.
That like, fuck it, whatever, it got me here. And it's not that it got me here, but it kind of is that it got me here. You know how everyone says, I want to be like a perfect parent, or I want to be a great student, or I want to be great at everything. It's like, it's not going to happen, bro. So you just have to do harm reduction. Dr. Lindsay Doe is a wonderful person on YouTube who makes like content about, everything from self-harm to sex to even like sympathy for pedophiles, people with predispositions towards attraction with children. Like we're talking about preventative harm, like preventing harm, preventative work. So I understand everyone is out here already traumatized, and then everyone is out here trying to prevent, but we need to just be more centered and nuanced about where we are. So if I get somebody who's in the middle of trauma, and I get someone and I'm working with someone and they're like, hey, I'm having thoughts about, I don't know, self-harm. It's like, oh, okay, what does that look like? And they're like, oh, overeating. And I know for a lot of people, they're going to think, oh, that's not self-harm. You're just like overeating and having fun.
Like, I understand what you're saying. Because, like, it technically would be some kind of self-harm, but I just wouldn't consider that self-harm. Like, and the reason is because of how difficult, we'll say, it is to self-harm in that way, or how easy it is, rather, to self-harm in that way. Like, if your self-harm is like, if your self-harm is eating too much food, I'm just like, okay, how hard is it for you to eat too much food? There's a difference between taking a knife and dragging it across your skin or burning yourself with like a cigarette or something. There's a difference between those two things and eating. Eating is like a behavior that's like it's not associated with like harming, because you're not actively like, oh my God, this hurts. Whereas people who are coping by like legitimately inflicting actual pain to themselves, it's just a different experience. I wouldn't call that self-harm. I just feel like that's like an inaccurate description of that.
Gluttony is one of the greatest sins in the world for a reason. Gluttony is not good for you. Sometimes on occasion, we all have a Thanksgiving, New Year's kind of weekend. We all like party, eat, drink. But in general, people who are gluttonous all the time, there's something in you that is like disgusted with yourself for a good reason. Because
I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
Because overconsumption has no balance to it, you feel that in yourself. So when you're going throughout life and you feel gluttonous on consuming media or negativity or anything, and you wonder why you feel slow or like that kind of ugliness comes upon your face, ask yourself, am I balanced? Am I being gluttonous with what I am involving myself with? So many people have this idea that they're good. And I think that you're probably right. I think all of us are basically good, except for a few like percentages. So I think most of the world is good. And that's going to be, I think next week's podcast or maybe the week after. I want to make a case for why the world is mostly good and mostly functional, because a lot of people are so in their trauma. But I'm going to tell you this right now. If you're waking up every day sad, every day upset, every day depressed, every day, this is your journey, not anyone else's. It's some other people's. Some people will have your journey. Some of us have been there and gotten out, but it doesn't have to be your life. It's just right now, this moment in time, and it's your moment in time. It's not about us. So if you're watching Trisha or watching this person or watching this person, and you're angry and you notice that you're feeling like really dark feelings, that's you, boo-boo. That's not us, right? And you might be the person in the room that's bringing everyone the fuck down for no other reason than that's your journey and you just don't know it. So I'm just going to tell you right now, pause. Are you that person? Or are you doing relatively fine? Are you waking up every day joyful? And if you're not, then you gotta look inward. It has nothing to do with YouTubers or other people. And then you have to decide, what are you gonna do to become more joyful? For Trisha, it was getting married to a man who understood her, Moses, and making love and having a baby and doing everything she...
I'm sure they're really good for each other. They're just both such pieces of shit. Just be fucking honest. Oh, God.
To fulfill that dream of being a mother. For me, it was a matter of being like focused on myself, knowing why I existed, knowing what the point of existence was, knowing why we were here as a species, and then finding along that journey of trying to figure that out, stabilizing my life towards joy. Now that led me to, again, a place I never thought I would be, in the middle of nowhere in a country town. It's very chill. I like it.
Oh, right.
But it's not where I thought I would be, right? I thought I'd be in the city, like a big CEO feminist, and now I'm not even a feminist, really. I just got feminist energy, you know what I'm saying? But all of these things had to happen through a lot of mistakes. Watch my video, Brittany Simon Through the Levels, or... Brittany Simon Borderline Through the Borderline, whatever, because those two videos have a journey that I'm so a little embarrassed about, a little proud about, that will show you that none of us come out perfect, especially not me, especially not fucking Trisha, right? But the thing is, if you know anything about mental illness, and I know a few things, there is a difference between a mentally ill person who's just trying to win this game of capitalism and monopoly, and a person who's maliciously evil. And I think you need to know the difference. When I look at Kanye, I think it's pretty clear he's mentally ill. And I think it's pretty clear that he's lost his grasp on reality. But that's because of his bipolar, and it's probably because he's not getting it treated, right? He's not seeking stability. Normally, stable people have a way of being, and it's not your values. It's not your morals. You cannot decide if somebody's stable mentally because it doesn't match your values. That in itself is sort of insane, but not in the DSM way. It's not like it's not in that way. You're not like certifiably insane. You're just in a bubble and you're in your own reality. It's like when the religious people say the gay people are insane because in their heads they can't imagine it. But then the moment they have gay children, they figure the sin is what's insane and not the child. But like that kind of proves that the action itself isn't that big of a deal because it's like a whole thing where people just like usually hit the surface level of their understanding of themselves and never go deeper, which is fine. But that's why you're still angry on Twitter yelling at Trisha. That's why you're still doing these things. And I totally get it. I 100% love to rant and rave. Have you seen me rant and rave about TikTokers? I'm so good at it. But in no way, shape, or form do I think those people are evil or bad. Well, all these other people in these comments,
my favorite.
Like, Trisha shouldn't have a baby, and people should like cancel Trisha. If you're afraid of Trisha Paytas, you're weak.
No, don't say that.
Yeah. And I get it. I've been weak before too. Yeah. It's scary looking at a person who's unstable and feeling fear when they don't even know you or won't even be in your life. It's scary when you go on Twitter and you just see a username and it's enough to put fear in your body. It's scary being weak. Because you're not sure if you're going to be able to handle a tweet or a Trisha Paytas or an Andrew Tate or anyone else on the internet that's sensationalized and like trolling their way into some sort of fame, which you contribute to because you love to live to hate them. It's hard being weak, right? It's hard being weak. And that's why you have to find...
I don't understand that, but the hard being weak. I'm not really understanding what we're talking about here. Like, are we associating like the weakness because like you're falling for the game of sensationalization? I'm a little confused. Maybe that's just my fucking problem.
Find strength in your life by being responsible for your choices and owning your mistakes, which takes a lot of effort. And I see Trisha making that effort, and I don't see a lot of her haters making that effort, which is not that surprising because usually there is a cesspool of the internet that exists just to hate people. I think it's clear certain people even have whole audiences of these kinds of people. And I understand that if you're in a bubble that is like constantly sad and depressed and anxious and all of these things, you're maybe going to think the whole world is that way. But a lot of us are living pretty happy lives. And we weren't always, but we worked really hard to get here. We found strength outside of our weaknesses and through our weaknesses to end up in our joys. So again, I'm not trying to tell you to live your life how you want. I'm just like pointing out an obvious that you might not be seeing because you might be too in your trauma. Right? So again, every time I'm introduced to a bubble that I forget exists, like poor people who don't know how to shop for themselves, amazing. Because, you know, I always think poor people are resilient and amazing and smart and so good at like pinching pennies. But that's because the poor people I grew around, like, were really good about that. But there are bubbles of people who don't even know how to do that, which is so interesting. Again, so fascinating. So it's like you're relearning it. You're kind of shocked, like, oh my God, people live this way? And then you're like, why? And then there's always a why.
It's very interesting perspective on
the real reason why
poor people.
Takes much more patience and openness than I think people are willing to admit. There's a reason why people in your life will grow up with a knife.
I'm sounding like level 1 right now. Yeah, true. Based on her level system. Yeah, you got me on that one. Sorry, brother. I'll try to better.
Most supportive, amazing parents and still end up in therapy because they were loved too much.
Yeah, I will say one thing. I feel like this video with Brittany Simon's video here, I think the one issue I have is I understand like the desire to be nuanced. But I also feel like that the desire isn't really here necessarily. Like to bring up stuff like, hey, you know, Trisha Paytas, maybe she's a product of her environment. Maybe she has this issue, that issue. Maybe you're projecting onto her and overreacting to some of the things she's done. Maybe we should practice forgiveness. These are fine. But Trisha has done some shitty things that people are really upset about, right? Like, you know, I want to see if I'll be able to. Oh, I'm not gonna be able to get that. Trisha has done some shitty things people aren't happy about. And I feel like we should at least understand that, like, right? Like, I understand that you could write it off as all just like shock humor or whatever you'd want to write it off as, but it's not great. She's done some shitty things. Like, I think that she mocked the death of like that young girl. I forget that young girl. And like, what was that young girl's name that I'm thinking of? Where she dressed up like her, when there's like the narrative, I think that like her father killed her. And she like did like a sexual, she did like a porn scene about it, basically, like a highly sexualized porn scene. Like Trisha's done some shitty things. You know, it's like, so I would acknowledge some of the shitty things that Trisha's done and then be like, yeah, you know what, I think that we should cut her slack. That's fine. But I feel like it's leaning too heavily in defense of Trisha rather than being like a little more, I guess you'd say, objective in the situation. Yeah, something like that.
Everyone is so different. you cannot parent universally the same. You cannot exist the same. You cannot woman the same. You cannot universally man the same. Everyone is going to have a different experience.
You know,
and you yourself have to pick the one.
John
Benet
Ramsey.
Only you.
Yeah, that's
for Trisha, it was this road. She said on a video recently, I think just today, actually, I watched it this morning, that she was debating sex work and how her child would view that. And even for me as a future mom, I love being naked and I want my kid to be super sex positive. I do question, like, when are we going to tell them I'm on OnlyFans? Like, when are we, how naked am I going to be in the house? Are we going to be a nudist household? Are we going to be a clothed household? Like, these are all questions I want to know ahead of time because I'm planning my pregnancy. A lot of people, most people in the whole world, did not plan their pregnancies the way that we do now because I can afford birth control, right? I get access to birth control where I can decide when I'm going to have a baby versus other people, all of our generations moving up, my mother's included, right? They just had babies because they were in love or God forbid, were raped or, you know, they just had babies. I get the luxury of planning my baby. So I get to plan to the best of my ability. And even then, I'm going to fuck up. I'm so worried about it. And I know it's going to happen. But that's life. You do your best and you hope it's good enough. And when it's not, you try your best to change it so it is. But you are not perfect. You will never be perfect. And unless somebody's truly evil, I think it's a worse reflection on you how you spend your time criticizing other people, myself included, right? I try really hard to be reasonable with my observations.
What?
But you are not perfect. You will never be perfect. And unless somebody's truly evil, I think it's a worse reflection on you how you spend your time criticizing other people, myself included, right? I try really hard to be reasonable with my observations while understanding. I think it helps that for me, I know most people are good. So for me, it makes it much easier to like criticize people because I don't mean to like demoralize them at the same time. I think most people are good, especially in their own narrative, including those people leaving mean comments on Trisha's videos or on my videos or anyone else's videos, right? But I think you forget that people just don't live your story. And so they're going to have a different way of handling their life. They're going to be wishy-washy in ways you're not. They're going to go back and forth. They're not going to look the way you need them to look, but I don't think you do either. I actually am convinced that most people are only this critical of others because they know they failed in themselves. I see it in conservative bubbles a lot, like religious.
I don't know if everything's necessarily a projection or active projection. I feel like a lot of people are this critical on other people in general because it makes them feel good about themselves, and that's like as simple as it is. You know, for some reason, people probably just have like they're probably just too beneficial to their own interpretation of life. They're like, yeah, like you'll do something that's like not good, and then they will overjudge you because they're like, I would never do that, even if they have actually already done that, you know? I feel like that's a part of it. You know?
Bubbles, or they'll say like gay people are always so miserable. Do you notice they're so miserable? And I was like, yeah, do you think that's because they were raised in homes where they don't feel seen or loved or humanized? And so they always feel kind of miserable? And they're like, no, it's because they're gay. And I'm like,
true.
Yeah, but like, imagine you were in a bubble, like my parents were, where you're a minority religious group.
Because they're gay.
And you're being constantly kicked out, tortured, fired from jobs, not allowed in school because you're not a certain religion. It sucks, right? And they're like, yeah, that obviously sucks. I'm being attacked. I'm like, right. Is it because you're, and they're like, Catholic? And I'm like, right. So is it Catholicism that's making you miserable? Or is it the fact that you're Catholic in a Muslim country? Is it the fact that you're gay that makes you miserable? Or that you're gay in a conservative household?
Nah, just because you're gay.
I think if you're really gay, it can't make you miserable because it's just who you are. How you process it can make you miserable. I don't think your gayness itself can make you miserable. I don't think your transness itself can make you miserable. I think it's how you think about your transness, often rooted in shame, and how your community, your bubble, shames you for that transness or gayness or LGBTness. So again, for me, I told you guys this in a live show. I was going to move to a more conservative state to live next to my farm brother, but then I realized like if my kids are trans or super gay, I want them to be themselves, and they're not going to always feel comfortable doing that, I think, in a much more conservative place. So even now, even though I'm pretty happy where I am, I'm really considering if I should move to a more progressive area-ish for my kids, even though I also hate super progressive areas, because no one's balanced. Everyone's lacking balance. So again, I'm thinking about the future and how to give my kids opportunities, because I was a queer kid stuck in a conservative bubble. But if I was born into a lot of people's homes, it would be misery for me, even if it wasn't a conservative home. Some liberal homes drive me crazy. Progressive homes can trigger me too. It's not going to be perfect in any way, life. It's just never going to be perfect. So we have to do our best. You just have to hope for the best and be optimistic and ask yourself, am I a warm person or am I a person bringing down the party? Do you know what I mean? Like, am I actually helping or am I making it worse for people? And I think that's what you have to ask yourself. And then if you're saying, well, I'm making it good for some people, be honest about who those some people are and maybe stick to those circles. If you're not going to be able to help Trisha Paytas, leave her alone, right? Like, don't be mean to her just because you're bored or because you feel self-righteous. How does that make you different from anyone else who thinks they have the right to stone you to death, hang you to death, put you in jail?
I mean, I would say that, like, listen, man, I don't know. I would say that like it's reasonable to criticize Trisha when she does something wrong, but just try to keep in mind that like she's not really doing anything wrong now, and you just hate her. That's probably like the message I would go with. I mean, it's the online. It's online. You know what I mean? So like, you know, people are obviously gonna weigh in on shit. So.
For the rest of your life.
But it's weird because the reality is like the way that you could really root this up is by telling people it's like, yeah, I know Trisha's content for you because like you're not a very interesting channel, but maybe like, you know, do make some risks and do content on other stuff, because that's the problem is people get like completely they feel like they're pigeonholed into exclusively reacting about like Trisha Paytas, because the only thing that makes them interesting is that they were talking about Trisha Paytas. It's the only thing that they continue to talk about. And then that's all they do. And then they're fucking boring losers that just talk about Trisha Paytas 24/7 because there's nothing interesting about them or their content outside of that. And that's one of those things where like that's a hard that's like it could be a hard pill to swallow for some of these people, I guess. But you know, you gotta get interesting. Talk about fuck. I didn't do that. Whatever. You gotta start talking about other shit, brother. You know what I mean? Just stop being a fucking boring person.
Decisions about like whether or not you should be able to have kids or
Someone
exist.
to do. Fuck.
I don't understand how you manage to go to sleep at night thinking I'm the good person when you're also internally thinking about how disgusting people are for just trying. Do you know what I mean? And I get it. We all have petty thoughts. Again, I really hate gluttony. I think gluttony is like the most disgusting thing in the world, but that's because it's so clearly lacking balance. And I think weakness is a part of the human condition, but it's obviously kind of disgusting because weakness is specific, and it's not weakness, i.e. vulnerability. Vulnerability is not the same as weakness. Vulnerability can lend to weakness, which is why you're hoping when you're vulnerable, you have somebody there who respects it and doesn't enact that weakness and use it against you. Weakness, though, weakness of character, weakness of honor, weakness of discipline, weakness of values, that's a very specific kind of weakness. That has nothing to do with crying or thinking I'm, you know, less than. That's not the kind of weakness I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about weakness of spirit, weakness of character. Where is your sense of honor, right? And are you an ugly person? And I don't mean physically, boo-boo. You know I don't.
Wait, what am I dying
I mean in your heart of hearts. Are you really a good person?
Fuck.
I think you probably are. But even good people can do bad things. And you might just be one of those people. And that is the hardest thing that we have to face in our lives. Are we the good people who do bad things? That's my podcast. I have no idea how long I've been recording, actually. This is probably going to be really short. Okay, well, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that I'm editing my own podcast currently because I cannot afford to pay Len a fair wage, and I would really like to. Len is my editor. If you guys would like, please leave a like on this video and a comment in the section.
Fuck Len.
Please join Patreon if you would like. Discord is $10 a month, and it's an amazing community. It's a great group of adults who think it's 18+ because we talk about philosophy and politics, and I don't want to get sued by new parents. So if you guys would like to join us, please join our Patreon. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, well. That was interesting. All right, yeah. Definitely an interesting video. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching, and a special shout out to all my Patreon patrons, my YouTube members, and my Twitch subs. If you'd like to learn how you can contribute even more than you already are by simply watching the video, you can check the links down below, which will unlock a special feature depending on the platform that you subscribe to, such as Patreon here that will get your name right here on this wall. Thank you so much, guys, again for watching, and have a good one.